Hello everyone, welcome back to Finding Normal. Today I'm going to talk about food. As you can see, prices are on the rise, not just on food, but on gas and other things too. Now when I talk about off-grid, I'm not just referring to not paying an electric bill. I'm usually referring to anything that keeps us completely dependent on the system. When it comes to food, the usual questions are, how do you keep food frozen? What about air conditioning? What about keeping milk, eggs, and drinks cold? How do you keep food from going bad in the heat? It's important to note that not one of these things would have been a question in the minds of our grandparents or our great-grandparents. Prior to the ready availability of cheap and easy grid power, none of these things were a serious problem or a serious concern. People lived generation after generation without even considering that it might be a good idea to freeze meat for years on end, or that you might want to drop the temperature 30 degrees during the day, or that somehow ketchup and mustard, which were originally invented as preserved food products, need to be kept at a degree or two above freezing. It's an interesting and almost unknown fact that almost every kind of food we eat in our diet today was first invented as a means of preserving the harvest. And this fact can be translated from almost any culture. Ketchup was a means of storing tomatoes. Cheese, sour cream, and yogurt are all a means of storing milk. Jellies, jams, raisins, and wine are all a means of storing fruit. Mayonnaise was a means of storing eggs. Ham, bacon, and sausage are a means of storing the pork. Sausage, jerky, pemmican, and broth were all a means of storing beef, and other meat products. Pickles, relish, kraut, etc. were all a means of storing vegetables. The list is really endless. Almost any food you eat or any food you order from a restaurant exists because some agrarians somewhere decided to make use of their brains and their wits to preserve the harvest. Every time you eat one of these foods, whether you know it or not, you are confessing that your ancestors created and lived a way of life that is far superior to the plastic, artificial, virtual life that most of us live today. We are cruising along on the fumes of a far superior culture, and we don't even know it. We need to learn the old ways, not just because they are old or because they're historical, but because the old ways worked and because they are sustainable. I don't mean sustainable in a modern, eco-friendly way. I mean sustainable in its literal meaning. We learn these ways because we'll be able to continue in them even if the grid beast collapses and dies. We can continue in these ways without undue intercourse with a corrupt and dying world, and without being stained or harmed by too much dependence on what the world calls necessities. So again, the beast runs off of our dependence. As we learn more, we learn there really is no valid reason to keep food frozen to 0 degrees for long periods of time. Your great-grandma didn't need a 40-inch fan or a 48-inch plasma TV screen, and neither do you. Your great-granddaddy didn't need a perpetual 72 degrees in every room of the house every minute of his life, and neither do we. The point is that we ought to get past this thinking, and when we do so, you will find that most of the costs of moving off-grid or transitioning out of the system are eliminated when the myths in our minds are eliminated. If you realize that you can do the things you want to do with hard work, with industry, and with your own labor without paying $20,000 for an off-grid solar power system, then you will have just saved $20,000. And all you have to do now is learn to replace the stuff with skill and know-how. The biggest myth and hurdle in our mind is we can't live without a refrigerator or a freezer. So the most important question becomes, how do you store the food you produce? The answer is study and practice the old ways. They have been tried, tested, and proven to be superior. Start today, because with knowledge comes power and confidence. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because they're not mistakes, but valuable experiences. Okay, until next time, remember, a simple life is a beautiful life. Bye.